Well, let's get right into that. I think we have our first email question of the night. This one is from John. What sorts of investigation and research do you usually do when preparing for a trial? How involved does the client have to be during this part of the process? A great question to start us off there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Courtney. John, that's a great question because a lot of times the investigation and the research has already been done before you actually get to trial. A good lawyer will know his case before he ever gets there. He'll know the weaknesses and he'll also know the strengths of that case. So when you're talking about the investigation and the research, a lot of times within the first 60 to 90 days, a lot of the investigation has already taken place. That's why it's very important to contact an attorney. You know, if you've been involved in an accident, contact him early. That way they can get the investigation rolling. Evidence is not ruined or spoiled, so to speak. And you're up on plane. The insurance companies, they have a right to contact their client anytime. So their investigation starts immediately when they get contacted that an accident happened. A lot of times individuals will wait several days, sometimes weeks, and even months before they contact an attorney to represent them. So you're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, but you know, a good law firm can get up to speed and get that investigation done. When you talk about the investigation and research portions of it, the investigation lends itself to what are the legal facts of the case and what research do you have to do. A trial is basically you've exhausted all your remedies before that, you know, whether it's mediation, whether it's pre-suit settlement, or settlement through the case itself. And so when you get to trial, you should have all your research done and you should have all your investigation work done. Very rarely do you see the TV situations where you have this witness come in at the last minute and bust through the courtroom doors and get on the trial stand and testify and something miraculously happens or changes the outcome in some form or fashion. So typically speaking, John, it's a great question, but a lot of times the research is done and the investigation done prior to the trial, months and sometimes years in advance. Now, to the second part of the question, does a client have to stay involved? Well, typically speaking, unless it's a criminal case where James would like to answer that, on the civil side, more likely than not, the client will have to testify, but he will already have given a deposition prior to this. So the defense attorney already knows what he's going to say, and hopefully the plaintiff's lawyer knows what he's going to say as well. The plaintiff's firm will meet with him several times throughout the months and weeks and days leading up to his trial, making sure he understands, you know, what his version of the facts were, what his deposition testimony read, and what he swore under oath to testify to, but also making sure he understands what's going on and what the process is. So, you know, the client has to be involved to some degree. But as far as getting involved in the investigation and the research portion, that's all done by the law firm. James, it's a great question on our side, but when you talk about the criminal side of things, the client involvement is much different.
Right.
Yeah, because in a criminal process, just how you were talking where your client would actually testify, that's not always the case. A lot of times when we're representing an individual, the defendant at that point would not testify. And they have that constitutional right, and the judge instructs them that that's not to be held against them or anything during that time period if they chose to basically just sit there and observe, because they would be present the whole time.
You know, we talk the first part of the question with the research and investigation. Do you have to go? I know obviously the police do their initial investigation, they go into that, and you get all of that information. Do you ever have to go out and find evidence yourself? Maybe that somebody has come forward and said, "I have a video of this," and you have to use that for your case, whereas the police might not have that.
A lot of times that's the case. Security videos sometimes can be very important, and we'll go and look and get those. I'll have an investigator that will actually subpoena those and bring those back to us. And then sometimes there's some other witnesses that the police didn't know about or didn't talk to, and our investigator will go and contact them, or sometimes we'll just contact them directly to see if they really have anything that is beneficial that they can add.